is that something she talked about? Was that part of her plan? Or did she go into that at all?
No, yes, we did talk about it. Yes, so, she had a baby before she went to law school. She, in fact, had a lot of soul searching about whether or not to go to law school, given that she was, when she got pregnant and realized she was following Marty, who was at law school the year class before her. And she actually credits her decision in the end to go to law school to her father-in-law, who said to her, amazingly, both her in-laws were incredibly supportive of her, as Marty was, and in that era, it's just shocking to me that you would say this to your own daughter-in-law who's just, starting to raise your grandchild, but he said to her, Ruth, if you decide that it's too much to take on to both, be raising a baby and go to Harvard Law School, no one's gonna blame you, everyone will understand, but if you really wanna do this, you will find a way. And she took that to heart and just decided to go.
I think everybody watching is relieved that she still has such a prominent role on the court. And I like what she had to say. I plan to keep doing this for as long as I can keep doing it well. And you got to know, looks like some of her family and some of her colleagues. Does she have people around her who are going to be able to say, maybe it's time? That's the concern I have. She's such an icon now, and she does such a good job.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if people heard that, are there people around her that she would listen to when they said it's maybe time, it's time now? I don't know. I think she would listen, she may listen to her children on that. She is pretty, since Marty's death, she is pretty single-minded, in terms of getting advice about things generally. It's kind of hard to imagine her taking someone else's view on something. Optimism does have, there's a double-edged optimism. It's hard to imagine her thinking oh, I'm not doing so well. When people say oh, but she should have stepped down earlier, I think one answer to that's I think she genuinely believes that she's going to live for a long time. So it's a good question. I don't fully know the answer. I guess maybe we could take one more.
Thank you.
And then yes, in the back.
When you start making the film, you have a lot of kind of miscellaneous footage. But when you decided you wanted to make the film, did you have kind of an idea of the angle or the story arc you were going for, or did it kind of evolve naturally?
Yes, we both had an idea of where we wanted the story to go, and it evolved as we went on. The basic, what I think of as being the basic arc, the cases that she argued in the 70s being ultimately capped off by the case she decided as a Supreme Court Justice, VMI, that's almost the reason that we made this as a documentary. It's her career has its own little arc. It's how cool is that? We knew we were going to be mixing in lots of the, currently shot verite stuff, and there's no way to know how that's going to turn out, so that evolves a lot. The main part of the story that I feel evolved a lot during our process was the stuff about her relationship to Marty, which just, we knew she'd been happily married for many years. We got that, and that people admired Marty Ginsburg very much. But once we started doing interviews, literally every person we talked to within the first 8 minutes would raise it on their own. Whereas we had it as a question for an hour in. He was so important to her, and she talks so she just lights up so much when she talks about him. And then we had the great thing of getting through her, those two professors at Georgetown who've been writing a very comprehensive biography about her for 15 years and doing all kinds of research, mentioned that they were really helpful to us, which was great. And one of them mentioned when we were having lunch one day, I think from Marty's family, we got a bunch of these old home movies that no one's ever seen. Would you be maybe interested in those? And we're oh my god. So we we said, please ask the justice if it's okay that you send them to us. And they did, and you know, so that part of the story just kept expanding. I mean, I think people in the 50s were not very good with their home movie skills. So like the footage, would like it'd go to someone's face and it would like jerk away. Like I think pretty much every single frame of young Ruth Bader and you know and Marty Ginsburg and the two of them together that we had that exists like ended up in the film. Like we slowed it way down, but like because it was so good and it just felt like it really, you know, just I mean who doesn't love a love story? So we put that in too.
Well, thank you so much, Julie. It's such a pleasure and a privilege to have you here, and thank you everybody for joining us.